Chapter 15. When Dr. Jim Parkhurst made his evening rounds, Junior didn't continue to feign sleep, but asked earnest questions to which he knew most of the answers, having eavesdropped on the conversation between the physician and Detective Vanadium. His throat was still so raw from the explosive vomiting, seared by stomach acid, that he sounded like a character from a puppet show for children on Saturday morning television, hoarse and squeaky at the same time. If not for the pain, he would have felt ridiculous, but the hot and jagged scrape of each word through his throat left him unable to feel any emotion except self-pity. Though he had now twice heard the doctor explain acute nervous emesis, Junior still didn't understand how the shock of losing his wife could have led to such a violent and disgusting seizure. "You haven't had previous episodes like this?" Parkhurst asked, standing at the bedside with a file folder in his hands, half-lens reading glasses pulled down to the tip of his nose. "No, never." Periodic violent emesis without an apparent cause can be one indication of locomotor ataxia, but you've no other symptoms of it. I wouldn't worry about that unless this happens again. Junior grimaced at the prospect of another puke storm. Parkhurst said, "We've eliminated most other possible causes. You don't have acute myelitis or meningitis or anemia of the brain, no concussion. You don't have other symptoms of Meniere's disease. Tomorrow we'll conduct some tests for possible brain tumor or lesion, but I'm confident that's not the explanation either." "Acute nervous emesis," Junior croaked. "I've never thought of myself as a nervous person." "Oh, it doesn't mean you're nervous in that sense. Nervous in this case means psychologically induced. Grief, Enoch, grief and shock and horror, they can have profound physical effects." Pity warmed the physician's S-A-S-C-E-T-I-C face. "You loved your wife very much, didn't you?" "Cherished her," Junior tried to say, but emotion clouded like a great gob of mucus in his throat. His face contorted with a misery that he did not have to fake, and he was astonished to feel tears spring to his eyes. Alarmed, concerned that his patient's emotional reaction would lead to racking sobs, which in turn might stimulate abdominal spasms and renewed vomiting, Parkhurst called for a nurse and prescribed the immediate administration of diazepam. As the nurse gave Junior the injection, Parkhurst said, "You're an exceptionally sensitive man, Enoch. That's a quality to be much admired in an often unfeeling world. But in your current condition, your sensitivity is your worst enemy." While the doctor proceeded with his evening rounds, the nurse remained with Junior until it was clear that the tranquilizer had calmed him and that he was no longer in danger of succumbing to another bout of hemorrhagic vomiting. Her name was Victoria Bressler, and she was an attractive blonde. She would never have been serious competition for Naomi, because Naomi had been singularly stunning, but Naomi, after all, was gone. When Junior complained of severe thirst, Victoria explained that he was to have nothing by mouth until morning. He would be put on a liquid diet for breakfast and lunch. Soft foods might be allowable by dinner time tomorrow. Meanwhile, she could offer him only a few pieces of ice, which he was forbidden to chew. Let them melt in your mouth. Victoria scooped these small clear ovals, not cubes but discs, one at a time from the carafe on the nightstand. She spooned the ice into Junior's mouth, not with the businesslike efficiency of a nurse, but as a courtesan might perform the task, smiling enticingly, a flirtatious glimmer in her blue eyes, slowly easing the spoon between his lips with such sensuous deliberation that he was reminded of the eating scene in Tom Jones. Junior was accustomed to having women seduce him. His good looks were a blessing of nature. His commitment to improving his mind made him interesting. Most important, from the books of Caesar Zed, he had learned how to be irresistibly charming. And although he was not a braggart in these matters, never one to participate in locker room boasting, he was confident that he always gave the ladies more satisfactory service than they had ever received from other men. Perhaps word of his physical gifts and his prowess had reached Victoria. Women talked about such things among themselves, perhaps even more than men did. Considering his various pains and his exhaustion, Junior was somewhat surprised that this lovely nurse, with her seductive spoon technique, was able to arouse him. Though currently in no condition for romance, he was definitely interested in a future liaison. He wondered about the etiquette of just a little reciprocal flirtation when his dead wife was not even in the ground. He didn't wish to appear to be a lout. He wanted Victoria to think well of him. There must be a charming and civilized approach that would be proper, even elegant, but would leave no doubt in her mind that she made him hot. Careful. Vanadium would find out. Regardless of the subtlety and dignity with which Junior responded to Victoria, Thomas Vanadium would learn of his erotic interest. Somehow, some way. Victoria would not wish to testify as to the immediate and electrifying erotic attraction between her and Junior, would not want to help the authorities put him in prison where her passion for him would go unfulfilled, but Vanadium would smell out her secret and compel her to take the witness stand. Junior must say nothing that could be quoted to a jury. He must not even allow himself as much as a lascivious wink or a quick caress of Victoria's hand. The nurse gave him another loving spoonful. Without a word, without daring to meet her eyes and exchange a meaningful look, Junior accepted the oval of ice in the same spirit with which this lovely woman offered it. He trapped the bowl of the spoon in his mouth for a long moment, so she could not easily remove it, and, closing his eyes, he groaned with pleasure, as if the ice were a morsel of ambrosia, the food of the gods, as if it were a spoonful of the nurse herself that he was savoring. When at last he released the spoon, he did so with an encircling and suggestive lick, and then licked his lips too when the cold steel slipped free of them. Opening his eyes, still not daring to meet Victoria's gaze, Junior knew she had registered and properly interpreted his response to her seductive spooning. She had frozen, the utensil in mid-air, and her breath had caught in her throat. She was thrilled. Neither of them needed to confirm their mutual attraction with even so much as an additional nod or a smile. Victoria knew, as he did, that their time would come when all this current unpleasantness was behind them, when Vanadium had been thwarted, when all suspicion had been forever laid to rest. They could be patient. Their self-denial and sweet anticipation ensured that their love-making, when at last they were able safely to indulge, would be shattering in its intensity, like the coupling of mortals raised to the status of demigods by virtue of their passion, its power and purity. He had recently learned about the demigods of classic mythology in one of the selections from the Book of the Month Club. When Victoria finally calmed her racing heart, she returned the spoon to the tray on the nightstand, stoppered the carafe, and said, "That's enough for now, Mr. Kane. In your condition, even too much melted ice might trigger renewed vomiting." Junior was impressed and delighted by her clever assumption of a strictly professional voice and demeanor, which convincingly masked her intense desire. Sweet Victoria was a worthy co-conspirator. "Thank you, Nurse Bressler," he said most solemnly, matching her tone, barely able to control the urge to glance at her, smile, and give her another preview of his quick pink tongue. "I'll have another nurse look in on you from time to time." Now that neither of them had a doubt that the other shared the same need and that eventually they would satisfy each other, Victoria was opting for discretion. Wise woman. "I understand," he said. "You need to rest," she advised, turning away from the bed. Yes, he suspected that he would require a great deal of rest to prepare himself for this vixen. Even in her loose white uniform and stodgy rubber-soled shoes, She was an incomparably erotic figure. She would be a lioness in bed. After Victoria had departed, Junior lay smiling at the ceiling, floating on Valium and desire and vanity. In this case, he was sure that vanity was not a fault, not the result of a swollen ego, but merely healthy self-esteem. That he was irresistible to women wasn't simply his biased opinion, but an observable and undeniable fact, like gravity, or the order in which the planets revolved around the sun. He was admittedly surprised that Nurse Bressler was strongly compelled to come on to him, even though she had read his patient file and knew that he'd recently been a veritable geyser of noxious spew. That during the violent seizure in the ambulance, he had also lost control of bladder and bowels, and that he might at any moment suffer an explosive relapse. This was a remarkable testament to the animal lust he inspired, even without trying, to the powerful male magnetism that was as much a part of him as his thick blonde hair.